As a kid, did you ever like go rooting around in video games files to see kind of like, see what's in there and see if you could figure out how it all worked together? What did what and where and why? I remember being a wee little toddler, right? And I was rooting around in Insaniquarium and I saw these images. And I thought it was weird that you would have this colored one and then this black and white one right next to it that you never really saw in game. They just kind of exist. They were just there. And I was always wondering, why did they exist at all? What were they doing with them? So what was the point? Speaking of old games, actually, do you guys ever wonder why those old PC games always have such like crisp graphics? Like there's just something about them, like you'll look at an old PC graphic and you can just like tell, like you can see it. You don't really know why it looks old PC pre-rendered asset, but like you can look at it. Like, you look at like Age of Empires 2, Fallout, Insaniquarium, like all you can look at them and be like, but what? Why does it look old? Why is it old looking? What's old about it? Let's look at Fallout. This is the player sprite. And you can tell it's pre-rendered, and you can tell it's probably from an early PC game. And I don't have to tell you that. Like, if you didn't know this was a Fallout sprite, like let's take this sprite for example. If you take this sprite, you know this is an old PC game. But how do you know? Why do you know? Now what if I told you that the player sprite from Fallout and the Insaniquarium fish sprite are actually more similar than you'd think? In fact, they use a similar technology to compress the file size. And what if I told you that these actually were GIFs? These are GIFs. In fact, actually, GIFs weren't originally supposed to be animated. That's a thing people figured out that you could do with them. That wasn't their intended purpose. This is a GIF and this is a GIF. These are both GIFs. In fact, every fucking image in both of these games is a GIF. Now, if you know anything about GIFs, you'll understand that they don't support transparency. But there would appear to be a fair amount of transparency given the fact that this fish isn't actually a square moving around the screen, right? So there's clearly transparent pixels, but not here and not here. So where the fuck is the transparency happening? Well, what if I told you that the black and white images, those were the transparency? That's the transparency, it's a mask. If you've done photo editing, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. This is transparency mask. The game uses this black and white image to tell this other image which parts of it are supposed to be clear or not. So basically, the white parts of the image are saying, this part is opaque, show the color. And the black parts are saying that this part is clear, don't draw it here, don't draw a pixel here. That seems a little complicated. Why not just have transparent pixels? Well, what they're doing is they're essentially shrinking the file size by 7 bits per pixel. And when you have an image, I just did the math, okay? In a 1920 by 1080 image, all right, standard HD, that is over 2 million pixels. So if you could cut off a fourth of the file size just like that and not lose any important information, why wouldn't you? That just makes sense. But how does having 2 images make file sizes smaller? Wouldn't it be bigger? And how does this save any space at all? Each pixel is defined by 4 values, right? You have R, G, B, and A. Each one of them gets 8 bytes, or 0 to 255. 255 being full brightness, that subpixel is off. The little LED in your computer screen that goes for red, off. 0, 255, right? Full brightness. Each pixel gets that data. So it gets 0255, 0255, 0255. If you know anything about binary, you know that 255 is a really specific number that you might come across a lot. 255 is 8 bits, and 8 bits is a byte. So each pixel gets 4 bytes of data, 32 whole bits. So if you can remove 1 whole bit, that's a lot of data saved. So what they're doing is they're taking the alpha channel, RGBA, alpha, transparency, and they're getting rid of 7 of those 8 bits, okay? They're just throwing it out, they don't need it. Because what they're doing is they're saying, oh, we have RGB, and that's good, but we don't really need the alpha. We don't really need that. So what if we just had it be on and off, 1 bit, a singular bit? How did they do that? Well, they don't encode the A in the fish image, but they do record black and white on and off in another image and overlay that information, and bada bing, bada boom, you have fish. Why does pirate software hate this fish? Well, if you know anything about how he calculates shadows, oh boy, it's a distance drop off. It goes, it calculates it by the pixel, dude. It's not good. It is bad. And everyone, you know what they recommend? You know what everyone else goes like, oh, you know what you should do? Mask. You should have a mask. You should have a layer mask. Just like this fish has. Fuck, how old is Insaniquarium? Oh my god, that fish That fish came out when I was born. Me and that fish had the same B-Day, dude. Me and that fish shot 9/11 together. Me and that fish go way back. I would marry that fish. This fish has more competent technology than Heartbound Shadows do. You think about that one. You comprehend that, okay? 25-year-old fish image beats Thor in terms of competency and how it renders its fucking graphics. If you look really closely at the fish and the Fallout graphics, what you'll see is that it says like, comment, and subscribe. Whoa, that's crazy. Like, comment, and subscribe. Or I'll cut that. Cut that out of the video. Don't include that. Me. Editor, put a monkey on the screen. No, but what you will see is that there's no partial transparency. There's no pixel that is like kind of see-through that you can see behind it like glass. No, it's on or it's off. It's opaque or it's clear. There's no in between here. And that's kind of what you get, right? You're cutting out that information. You're getting rid of that info. So all you have left in terms of alpha is on and off, opaque, clear. You know, it's like it's a trade-off, right? That's why it looks so crispy on modern computers. You gotta remember, when these games came out, the predominant screen that people were using was a CRT monitor. Now, CRT monitors have way bigger resolutions than TVs did, absolutely, but they're still CRTs. The phosphorus smear is still gonna happen. So those crispy edges, those deliciously crispy edges of these images get smeared ever so slightly. So it smooths already. So at the time, there wasn't really a trade-off in terms of like how crispy stuff looked, the edges of images, how they look so crisp and jagged and old. They look fine on a CRT. They look perfectly serviceable. They don't look crispy at all. They look absolutely immaculate. Chef's kiss good. They look cromulent. Even. Why am I talking about this? Well, you remember the last two videos where I was, putting things from a resource into a file system in order to save on VRAM and load things a bit more dynamically, only load what I need type shit, right? You remember that? Well, that started off because the file size I was using for my spinny guys was really big. So that whole journey started off with me being told that I was using 2 gigabytes of VRAM. And my immediate solution to that was, shrink it. Shrink that size. I really walked up to those images and I was like, I'm sorry guys. I'm like, death to the kid. My spinning dudes were 4K. That's like big. Too big images, so I shrank them down. I used my Shrinkinate array and I made them 400 by 400. And in the same vein, I had textures that I was loading in the VRAM that I wasn't using, that I wanted to take out of VRAM. The last time I did it, my entire game, it broke in my hands. I was left with garbage that wasn't functional and running. And I was like, I'll do it later. So recently I removed these extraneously embedded files from my game. They're no longer there. But the issue is that it still broke stuff. So first the player HUD, with the bar and the time and the guy in the corner, gone. I'm back from work late. The wife is there and he's like, fuck, I need to get dithered. But people are gonna think this is a bit. This is how I am. Shocker, dude. A man trying to make a game by himself is not exactly the most sane person in the world. Anyway, the textures that were in the game now, you see, this is the old Huldra, okay? Old Huldra, we've seen her, we love her, she's spinning. Wow. New Huldra. Do you notice anything? Do you notice how fucking crispy she is? That's right, she looks like this. Hey kid, you wanna buy some magenta? Anyway, we're leveraging the power of modern graphics cards, baby. We don't need to have 2 different files, nor do we need to use GIFs. We're using PNG 8's 24-bit images, and we're shaders, man. 1 line of code. And it looks for magenta, and it says, like, get the fuck out of here! I will not have magenta in my house! What the fuck did I write? Instead of having a mask to tell us which pixels are alpha or not, I've picked a specific background color to be my alpha. Ooh woo. Anyway, that begs the question, where's our VRAM at now? Where is it at? What's it look? Well, what if I told you? It was 23 megabytes and we added new graphics. That's right. We cut that shit by half and we added new shit. Don't worry, when I broke shit, I fixed it. Mostly. But frankly, I need to redesign the level anyway, so who cares if you walk up doors right now? We're gonna get rid of it. We're gonna redesign it. The school is a little small, a little cramped. It wasn't actually working that well. It was kind of like the first thing that came to mind. I found a school that was like real. Thinking about it, it's not that good for gameplay. So we're gonna redesign it with more. We're gonna make a school with more murder in mind, you know? Like, come on. Addressing some things people have told me to do in the last video. I've seen it a few times, saying that I should use a hash map to validate the files. Now, if you don't know what a hash map is, it's a sequence of 255 characters that you generate based on some data. And what they're saying is that I should use each of my NPC directories, check the files, make a hash, check the hash that's stored and the hash from the file and see if they line up. Now, in a vacuum, this makes sense. This makes sense to do. If you don't think about why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing. I'm doing the thing that I'm doing not because I want to validate files. The point of what I'm doing is so I can add and remove monsters and characters easily. If I need to remove one of them for whatever reason, that I can remove it easily. I don't need to like spend a whole lot of time doing that. I can be like, out, gone, right? It is a developer tool. It is a thing that is in the game when I'm making the game. It makes the making of the game easier. So while that makes sense to do if the goal is to validate files, my goal is not to validate files. My goal is to be able to easily add and remove NPCs during development. And also I was told that I was informed that I should make a tool script to generate a JSON file and make an NPC manifest that way. So I could have a button that just says make JSON, and then it generates a JSON file based on the file structure. And yes, I plan on doing that. I realized in my videos that I explained why the art looked the way it does, but I didn't actually say what my vision for future stuff will be, what things will look like, the art direction that I'm taking things in. So I'm going to do that in the next video, and we'll go also into a little bit more of sound design and making files smaller and stuff like that. So if you're interested in keeping up with development, you like what I'm doing, you like how this project is, and you want to support me, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And here's a list of my Patreon supporters. I love them dearly.